Hi, my friend. Welcome back to the last episode of Ken and Sandy's story. I'm so glad that you came back. Healing Together YouTube channel is a channel dedicated to God stories just like this one, where God shows up and answers our prayer, or God shows up and shows us His will and reveals to us something extremely special just for us, and we gather strength from that because we can look back at the saints, Ken and Sandy, and we can look at their lives, and they persevered and they stayed true to their commitment, and they walk where we are walking right now. They have already been through that. Our pastor Dan will many times share, "I don't trust a man that doesn't walk with a limp." In other words, he says that unless he's been through the fire, I'm not overly concerned about his advice. And Ken and Sandy both have been through the fire, and so we want to hear and glean from them what they have. Their story, as I did the editing for all of these, I kept hearing in my ear Psalms 127:1. It says, "Unless God builds the house, those who build labor in vain." I can't tell you how actually emotional it makes me to listen to Ken and to Sandy share their hearts in the last episode of those last couple times when Ken was at the pastor's meeting and they prayed for him, and when Sandy was in the small group and she said, I just can't share this again. You can feel the heartstrings tugging at just, is God listening? And today we are going to again hear Ken share with us a story towards the end where he asks God a question. And God reveals Himself in a very special way. We're going to do a little bit of laughing today. We're going to do some emotional, maybe crying might even come into the picture. Most of all, though, we are going to celebrate God. That's really what we're doing. We're celebrating God. And we're celebrating God active in Ken and Sandy's life. You need to hear what Ken says in reference to the last 7 years. That's going to be an important part. I told you in the ending video of the last session that we hear the same thing recurring over and over many times in our interviews, and it is something new. It's not something I really expected to have, and so it is something I felt with my book, Scarred for Life. It is what I have quoted many times. In fact, there was a quote that I used to use in sharing my story of, I've had some experiences that I wouldn't take $1 million for, but I wouldn't give you a plug nickel to go through them again. And that's essentially what they're saying, but he says it in a very, very special way. In this video, the Lord was moving in our living room, and there's one or two slow spots that I've taken some of it out, but I've purposely left a couple of those in there where our minds would be running, and you won't hear it because I edited it out, but there's places where I'll say, is there anything else? And then I'll let it sit there. And I've done this in all of the videos because I want to, sometimes God's Word don't come real quick and real clear. And so I want us to get every single last word. And this time, more than I think almost any of the other ones that I've published so far, this time that last word is so important. It kind of came out of the blue for Ken as he shares a story of moving rocks one day at a time. And so make sure, my friend, even though some of these parts are just a tad slow while we wait on the Lord, wait for that last word and wait for the last thing that God has to share with us. Thank you for coming by. Please hit that like and subscribe button if you've not. We definitely would appreciate it. Tell somebody about Healing Together. Encourage them to come and hear the story, especially Ken and Sandy and some of the other ones we have. And come back at the end, and I have a special announcement. And so let's hear what Ken and Sandy have. As we go back and we hear again, Sandy tell us that she thinks she may have to thank Diane for her preparation of her husband. And let's join them in that conversation. Let's listen.
In fact, Sandy is reaping the benefit of a wife that helped get me fixed up. You know what I mean? Diane did a lot of work on me over the years.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I need to thank Diane and even I would say even Diane's parents have been so kind to
Have
me,
they?
Wonderful.
embracing me. Yeah, she calls me. I had a conversation with her. She was a little nervous about losing Ken as her son-in-law. So one night you were helping her with the computer or something, and it was just her and I. And she said, "Is it okay if I still call Ken my son-in-law?" And I said, "Absolutely." And I said, "You will be the only mother-in-law that he will ever have, because my mother is gone." And I said, "In fact, my mom's gone, so can I be your mom too? Or can I be your daughter too?"
Yeah.
And I think that was helpful to her. Just,
Wow.
but she has been very kind. Diane's father has since passed away, but yeah, she's that's kind of her.
And that is an amazing relationship.
Yes.
Diane's mom and my second wife are such good friends.
It's wonderful.
And it's beautiful. And so when Sandy and I got married, Pat was there. And she was the mother of the bride.
Oh, that's cool.
And so, she walked in, she says, "Where's Sandy?" "Well, she's back getting ready." "Oh, I want to see her." "Well, she doesn't want anybody right now." And she said, "I'm the mother of the bride." And she went back there. And it is a beautiful thing.
Yes. Yes.
God takes what could be an awkward relationship
Yes.
and turns it into something beautiful.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That is beautiful.
Yeah.
God.
And the kids have been I know it's hard. I'll never replace their mother, but they've been kind to accept me, and hopefully they see their dad happy and thriving, and so that's my goal. We often say we probably have the best of both worlds. I lived so long without a husband, desiring a husband, so I realize what a gift he is to me. And he had 38 years of a great marriage and lost that, and so now he realizes too what a treasure
What a
marriage
value,
is, what
yeah.
a value. So we don't, and we're older, so we've done a lot of life. We're more mature than some. At 20, you might not be thinking that way, but I think we have it pretty good. But I'm so grateful. I mean, that was the discouraging, as a single, that was the discouraging thing for me, is looking at different men, and they had so much baggage, just divorces and things, and so to find a faithful man for 38 years is a gift too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think it was a great setup that I understood. I think it was a great setup because I eventually understood what I had in a marriage. You know, you don't know what you have until you lose it. And so, you know, I said especially in the first year, it wasn't so much that Diane died, it's that she died a dozen times every day. When something would happen and I would pick up my phone to call her, or I can't wait to tell her this, and then all of a sudden I realized, oh, she's gone. Or when I woke up in the middle of the night and looked at her pillow and she wasn't there, and I go, oh, she's gone.
Mm-hmm.
About a year after she died, I remember going home from church, and it was a great night with the youth group, and I thought, man, I can't wait. And I picked up my phone, and it's like, oh,
Yeah.
she's not there. And so I realized what an amazing thing a wife is. And so that was preparation for meeting Sandy, that I don't want to ever take her for granted, because I realized what that was like. In fact, I have a note on my phone, to your grumpy self. So if ever I get grumpy at her, I've got a note on my phone that I can read to myself, and I can say, you know, do you realize how wonderful a wife is? You know, and just so yeah, I benefit and from going through that to realize what I have now.
I hate to tell you this, but you have a halo around you.
That's not natural. Anybody that knows me can attest to that.
That's funny.
Oh.
My goodness.
Well, I think that's all I have. Unless you guys have something else.
Anything else?
And I absolutely.
Oh, you know, one more thing. The proposal.
The proposal was a surprise, major surprise. I had no idea.
Oh,
It
really?
was. I mean, we knew we were going to get married, but I didn't think that it would be that soon. And so he, yeah, you go ahead.
When I decided to ask Sandy to marry me, I went to Sandy's older brother and asked his permission. Her father was gone, and her mother was gone, and so I, through watching a video of the ministry that she works for, somebody talked about, you know, the mother's ring. Oh, and I thought, I wonder what happened to Sandy's mother's ring. So when I asked her brother's permission, I said, where is your mom's ring? And Sandy's sister had the ring. And so I got a hold of her and bought the ring from the family and had it modified. Had one of the diamond chips was missing, and so I had it redone at a local jeweler. And so as soon as I could get that thing back from the jeweler, as soon, I was going to ask her to marry me. And so it ended up being June 7th. On June 5th, I met with the jeweler, and they gave me the ring back. It was beautiful. And so that next Friday night, I worked it out. We went to the River Walk in Mishawaka, had it all planned out, had a photographer hiding in the bushes to take pictures, and got Sandy looking off in one direction, and then I knelt behind her and proposed to her. And that was on Friday. On Monday morning, Sandy texts me, and did you see what Susan put on Facebook? No, I didn't see it, and it was buried in the comments under our proposal. And her sister wrote this: Sandy and Ken faithfulness. Mom continued to wear her precious wedding ring for 35 years after Dad passed away. 6 years ago, on June 7th, 2013, we celebrated Mom's life, said our final goodbyes to her here on earth, and removed her wedding ring. Only God knew the plan He had for that ring. Only He knew that on June 7th, 2019, that ring, after it was modified, would make an incredibly beautiful gift for you. I had no idea that the day I proposed was 6 years to the day after her mom's funeral.
Wow.
And she texted that to me. I'm at the gym getting ready to work out, and I'm bawling. And I texted her back,
Wow.
this is not our story. This is God's story.
Amen.
We get to play a role in it.
Yeah. Wow.
And you can cut the cameras, but that our story, the lady I work for her and her husband wrote a book, You Can Trust God to Write Your Story. And there's lots of different stories in there about trusting God when your husband has a terminal illness, or trusting God when you're single, or trusting God when, all the different types of stories. Well, she was in the process of writing this book, and she had asked me if I would mind just typing up something about my story. So she ends up putting my story in her book about trusting God when the Lord doesn't give you a husband. Well, in the process of her writing this book and turning in the manuscript, Ken comes around, and it was a fast relationship.
Right.
But like a couple weeks before, she said, "Hey, I think I'm going to change this," and just put like a postscript and say, "In the process of writing this book, you've been," Cassandra was my code name, has been pursued by a godly widower. So I sent that to Ken. I said, "Are you okay with that?" And Ken says, "Yeah, that's fine." Well, then the night that I got engaged, I call her, and so the next morning, she's probably awake all night thinking, well, how am I going to do? So the next morning I get this text and said, "I think I'm going to see if I can get a extension on my manuscript, and I'm going to change that so that, they say you're engaged or whatever now." But I said, "Nancy, there's always going to be a story that's evolving. You got to just do whatever you need to do." But I said we'd be fine if it went through with you still being a godly widower. So, but through that, when in the promotion of the book and stuff, it came out in 2019, and so often she talked, when she was doing interviews and stuff, she talked about our story, but also being quick to say it doesn't always work you don't pray or not pray or start praying for a month and then all of a sudden you have a wife. It doesn't always work that way, but God is orchestrating our lives and our stories, and you can trust Him in that, and He is sovereign.
Yes.
He's in control over every situation and story, and
In fact, you could actually say that heaven rules.
it's another book that might be a good book title. Yeah, that's her next book coming out too. But
Wow.
that's her code. She's always just saying heaven rules. In the midst of life's difficulties, we know that heaven rules. God sees the big picture.
See,
He's conforming us in His image, and we learn. I learned more about a personal relationship with God when He's all you have, and you did too, in a sense. When the hard times is what draws us close.
are you still taping? There's one more comment. You can add it in if you want. The last 7 years has been the hardest period of my life through physical, emotional, and relational pain. But if God came to me and gave me the option to skip those 7 years, I wouldn't take it, because I wouldn't want to live the rest of my life without knowing what I've learned in that process. I have learned so much about myself, about God's faithfulness, and I've grown in that process. So I wouldn't want to live my life without knowing that.
Bravo.
So you might say your scars bring you life.
Yeah. My scars.
Yes.
My scars bring me life. Scars are evidence of healing.
Amen.
Exactly. Sandy talked to that lady that's 50 years old, still wondering.
God's best plan for you is right where you're at, and and seeking Him, learning all you can about Him. He provides all that you need. I used to kind of, when people would send me Romans 8:28. Works all things together for the good. I used to not like that verse, but until I realized it says He works all things. I don't see all today. I just see today. But God sees all, so He's working that out in our lives. The good, the bad, the waiting. There's purpose in the waiting, and it's a good plan. To keep seeking Him, though. To keep and asking. He's not afraid of our questions.
Right.
Keep asking. Why I don't understand this, Lord. Being honest with Him is healing. Is comforting. It's not. God, why are you doing this? It's God, help me understand. Why? What's wrong with me? Why am I not? Why don't I have a husband? And now I look back and I'm grateful for the years that He had protected me from foolish decisions.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, but
Right.
Wow.
Thank you. You're smiling, Ken. I'm going to give you one more chance. Got anything else?
What did you just ask, Sandy?
Speak
Talk
to
to
that
the
person, that girl that you really talk to the people that are going through some tough times, and and I could tell you that is the recurring theme of Healing Together. If I could go back and God would give me the option to not go through it again. We had Angie and Chip sit here. Angie's 50 years old. At 40 something, she was talking to hospice. And it was a botched surgery. They had missed cancer, and it metastasized, and then they couldn't find it. And she said, if I could go back and lose this death sentence over my head, but I had to give up what Jesus has revealed to me, she said, I wouldn't go back.
and that's hope. That's
Yes.
when you hear that gives the people in the midst of
Yes.
the waiting,
Right.
the wondering, the questioning,
Yes.
that
Yeah.
okay, this life I might in couple years, months,
Right.
decades, I might be able to say the
Understand.
same thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
That
Yeah.
I wouldn't trade that time.
Yeah.
And yeah, I would say the same thing. I'm grateful for
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
years that I had to be single focused.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
For the people that are in the midst of grief right now or going through things you don't understand, I remember a Sunday night. It's interesting how Sandy and I Sundays were like one of the hardest days of the week because, you know, I've been with people all morning and now I'm at home all by myself. And I had made a commitment not to date for a year. And a few months after Diane died, I thought, what a dumb thing to do. You idiot. And I was just thinking, and I think in pictures. And so I had this picture of this valley. And there were rocks between where I am and where I wanted to be. And each day was a big boulder. And so each day I could move one boulder. And the next day would be another, but just a pile of boulders. Now, I don't know why I think like that, but that's the way I was thinking. And I just got frustrated. I said, God, how am I supposed to do it? How am I supposed to get on the other side of that? How am I supposed to live every day like this? How am I supposed to make it day by day by day? Tell me, how am I supposed to do it? And I wasn't mad at God. I was frustrated at my situation. And I was asking an honest question. You know what God said to me? Nothing. For 2 days. And 2 days later, I was meeting with my grief counselor. And he said, he was talking about the difference between hope and optimism. Hope is based on faith. And as believers, we have faith, and that gives us hope. And optimism is based on nothing, just wishing for a better day. And so as he's talking about that, God responded to my question. And he simply said, what's on the other side of that pile of rocks will be worth it. And I just went, okay. I have hope. I have hope. And that has made all the difference. That was a turning point in my grief journey. Going, okay, this hurts. This is difficult. It's no fun. But I have hope. And you have hope.
Well, that's where we wrap up. There's hope. Ken shares with us, I hope you caught that last story. Ken shares with us that it's going to be worth it when we get through these tough places in our lives. I can concur with that. I've been through some hard places also. In my book, Scarred for Life, I share one of those hard places that we went through that was a series of hard places, just like Ken talked about moving those rocks. We talk about the different stories that happened inside the story of the burn unit. I so hope that it has touched your heart and that you've enjoyed it. Please, if you haven't, hit that like button and hit the subscribe button. That will help us to get these stories out there to a worldwide audience. Pray for Ken and Sandy that their testimony would be used for God's glory and for their glory. And we will see you again in the next episode when we look at another couple, friends of ours that we have known for many years. I'm not even going to say how many years. for many years, and we look at some of the things that they've went through as God took them from one point to another. He's a veteran. It's a good story. You're going to want to hear that when we come back. As I make these little videos, the exit and entrance videos for these interviews on this segment for Ken and Sandy, I am ready to go in the morning, first thing tomorrow morning from when I recorded them, to have knee replacement surgery. I don't quite know what to expect. It's been a long time since I've had any kind of surgeries. I don't expect it to have me down very, very long. At this point, I plan on just having, I believe this video will be scheduled for a Tuesday, and Dan and Kathy should start on Friday. But there is the possibility that we'll go through the weekend without a video, and I will have to come back that next weekend. So, my friend, take some time, look through some of the other videos. We have been contacted by Angie, and we hope to share some good news with you very soon coming up about some improvement in her numbers, in her cancer numbers. I hope to share that. So come back and keep an eye on what's going on. If you haven't, hit that subscribe button. It's free. If you have to, make an account. That's free. Subscribe. Share it on your media page. Share what God does in the lives of these people. We would greatly appreciate it. My friend, have a great day or evening whenever you're listening. May God bless you, and may we all find healing together as we listen to these stories. God bless.